Alright, hi everyone, still here, and in this video I would like to talk with you about, mm, let's say just mechanics of Dark Souls 3, I believe, or more like just the changes between the games like Dark Souls 2 or Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. We're just gonna compare these mechanics and talk a bit about them. So, starting with a topic which people constantly talking about, just the backstabs. Um, Backstabs are different, definitely. And makes long story short, this is like completely new system, but based more on Dark Souls 2 mechanics than anything else. About the animation, in fact, it's a bit more similar to Dark Souls 1, but besides this, it's pretty much just system which looks completely new, but have its course on Dark Souls 2. And explaining this, you simply have something like pre-backstab frames. So basically, someone have to be in these frames to execute the backstab. So, similar to Dark Souls 2, you just can't do an instant backstab. You just have to force your opponent to, for example, run out from stamina, or just force him to stay in the one place, like for an example, dodge his really heavy attack with huge amount of recovery frames. Yeah, actually I saw some opinions like people saying actually that pre-backstab animation is just longer than Dark Souls 2 pre-backstab animation. And at most of the point, yes, but not really at all, because basically in Dark Souls 2 that pre-backstab animation was based on your weapon which you was using to execute a backstab. If that was like a small dagger, actually this pre-backstab animation was really fast. And in case of, for an example, ultra great sword, that was simply longer. So I think this Dark Souls 3 mechanic is mostly similar to just using ultra greatsword in Dark Souls 2 and trying to execute a backstab. Something like that. If you know how to do that in Dark Souls 2 with ultra greatswords, I think you will not have any problems with executing backstabs in Dark Souls 3. Alright boys, so we talked plenty about backstabs. Now let's example, you couldn't rotate instantly. You had to know proper strats, how to do this. You had to play with an unlocked playstyle and combinations and shit, and basically there was a lot of things to learn. And meanwhile in Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne, that's looking well, just easier. You just, if you wanted to rotate and attack in the opposite direction or something like that, you was just doing this without any problem. You just was showing the direction of attack, and that's basically it. And this is how it looks like in Dark Souls 3, but not at all. It's like it's a fusion of Dark Souls 2 and Bloodborne, because for an example, roll attacks are really fast, but not so fast. No, more like not so fast like in Dark Souls 2, but as well not so slow like in Dark Souls 1. So this is something between these two. So I could say probably roll attacks are really similar to these from Bloodborne, and to execute them mostly. In most of cases, actually, it looks like that, instant rotation, but there is some sort of attacks which simply looks a bit more like in Dark Souls 2. So both people who like Bloodborne mechanics and both and people who like Dark Souls 2 mechanic gonna find here something for themselves. Some attacks just gonna be harder to execute for people who played more Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne, and some attacks gonna be easier to execute for people who just played a lot of Dark Souls 2. Alright, about the poise. This is important thing though, because there was a lot of information spreading around that there is a poise or something like that. Well, there is no poise. There is a hyper armor, and this is a system completely took from Bloodborne. It's simply when using a heavy weapon, you have something in sort of hyper armor, hyper poise while you was attacking with these huge weapons. And this is exactly the system in Dark Souls 3. You simply, when you for an example have like a short sword, long sword, scimitar, because this is basically like at 3 weapons. There is in the beta you had long sword, you had scimitar and scimitar, that's wherever, and ultra great sword. And basically with these 2 first weapons, that means scimitar and longsword, you do not have any hyper poise, but in case of ultra great sword, when you was while in the R1 attacks, for example, you was spamming it like crazy, you had a hyper armor and you couldn't get staggered nor stun locked while using this this weapon, and as simple as that. So yeah, this is system directly moved from Bloodborne, and this is and actually a bit from Dark Souls 2, but I'm not sure if they're gonna be even poise at all. It seems like, I mean, we will see on the release day, but because unfortunately we wasn't able to check out menus nor stats or anything like this while network test, but I think actually this system just it looks like a Bloodborne system, and probably it's gonna be like a Bloodborne system. Yeah, enough of this topic. Let's move to the next one. Alright, pairing. You know what? Pairing is the most similar thing to Dark Souls 1 in entire beta, in my opinion. I mean, I'm talking of course about the mechanics, not animations. And at first, you can't parry on every degree like it was in Dark Souls 2. And probably like it was in Bloodborne, if I remember correctly. You can just parry only if the opponent is in front of you. And the second thing, there is a partial parry. So, yeah, if you will miss the frames, you're just gonna get a slight of the damage. Not all of this, you will be not staggered and thing. And there's actually interesting strat, because resins in this game works actually really fast. And a few of my mates actually tried to execute some strats in the beta about the parries, and they found that you can actually parry your opponent, use a resin, and then execute a riposte. So you was able to increase your damage, which is pretty cool. I really like that people even in beta, where they have like not too much time to find like a new strats and things, they even in the beta just looking for things like that. That's really cool. God damn it, love it, and can't wait till we're gonna be able to finally check out how the menus looks like, and if that's even possible to, for an example, make some weapon swaps while parrying and things like this. Actually probably I already see that on the video, but the animation of the parrying is pretty fast. I mean, it's longer than Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne probably, but not so long like in Dark Souls 2. Alright, something about the feels, about PvP overall. You know what? People saying this game is similar to Dark Souls 1. I don't really feel it like it's Dark Souls 1. I just feel like it's some sort of the fusion between Dark Souls 2 and Bloodborne. Because you know, even if, for an example, in Bloodborne, the core mechanic of the dodge was a dash, then actually I'm not looking pretty much about the animation as itself, but how can you execute it? And simply in case of comparing of Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne, the thing which you can do with the rolls are more similar to the Bloodborne than to Dark Souls, because mostly because of the backstab mechanic changes. Yeah, this is how I look at this, and of course you can have a different opinion, but in my opinion, I think it's if you're playing only Dark Souls 1, you can feel a bit lost in the world of Dark Souls 3. But if you're playing Bloodborne on Dark Souls 2, I think that's gonna be a lot easier for you to find in the world of this new game. Yeah, actually, basically this is how I see this. So yeah, I guess that's all. I like what I see. I mean, there's some mechanics which piss me off, like for an example, possibility to invade only people who have white phantoms in their worlds, but maybe that's just only for stress test. Yeah, to just make that stress test, isn't it? To just force people to have that 6 people in their worlds and fight with each other and see how the network gonna act like on the stress. Yeah, and the second thing which I really don't like is just the fact you have that stupid thing. I mean, when you're the host you have like 1.4x more HP. This is fucking ridiculous. This is like casual friendly mechanic which shouldn't exist in this game, to be honest. Yeah, and yeah, it seems like you have something like Lords of Cinder mechanic, which actually makes it possible to bank invade only in case if you have that that status on, and so basically you can summon people and you have more HP. Goddammit, this is annoying though. I mean, seriously, he thought that's a good idea. Because of this, I'm pretty scared about eventual PvP scene after the Dark Souls 3 release, but you know, there's a lot of time till the release day, so maybe they're gonna change something, or maybe they're gonna change everything. Maybe the PvP gonna look completely different than it's looking on the beta. Who knows? And yeah, just one small bonus before we're going to end. At the end of the video, there was, or it's gonna be, because I already don't see a video, unfortunately, not sure how much time this talking takes. There is a ravioli step. People like Peep, who was playing in beta, and Sunlight Blade was talking, not a beta, but I don't know, that's pre-stress test version of the game, let's call it like that. They said actually there will be no ravioli rolls, I mean, or at least they cannot execute it, and normally you can, but here's a way how to do that. You just have to do a roll or backstab, and then when you're in the frames of the roll or the I'm sorry, backstab, not backstab. When you're in the frame of the other action, you can just do a ravioli as the next action. This is seems kinda buggy, but who knows how that gonna works in the final game. Alright guys, that's all for now, thank you and see you later.